Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Journal. In today's edition, I head back out toward Vail Lake and climb to the top of Oak Mountain, a different Oak Mountain. This one's on the other side of the steep canyon where the Temecula Indian Massacre occurred way back in 1847. I'll be navigating my way up the mountain from the north side near the Temecula wineries and climbing up on a series of fire roads after winding my way through a series of ranch homes and vineyards. Once on top of the main ridge, I enter a county preserve and an environmentally sensitive area set aside to protect the federally endangered Kino checker spot butterfly. Now, years ago, I had taken a dirt road past a remote airplane club airfield and took an unmarked use trail to the top of a mountain in search of a benchmark titled Henderson 1939. It was a great hike. It was difficult and steep in some places, but it was very rewarding. The mountain was called Oak Mountain. Now, in doing some research for the Vail Lake Loop, I ran across mentions of another Oak Mountain, this one on the Vail Lake side. That's the one I did in the last episode. In this episode, I discovered that old dirt road I had taken years past was now closed and private. According to Post on All Trails, the first part of the hike up to this Oak Mountain was through a winding series of steep paved roads leading through a housing development. They also mentioned that there wasn't a trailhead sign or any indication of a trail, and worst of all, you had to either park way down the road down by a winery or park out in front of somebody's ranch home, and you know that's not always very well appreciated. It seemed like nobody liked the first half of this hike on all trails, especially the getting to the trail, but once on top, they all agreed the view was worth the hassle. Now I decided there's got to be a better route. Luckily, in digging through some older All Trails posts, I found a review written way back in September of 2020 by Rosette, who actually didn't even make the top of Oak Mountain. But she left a great description on how to get to the parking area, saving all of that road walk. Now with Google Maps and Street View, I was able to plot a course right next to the start of the trail. And bam, parked right next to the trail. Thank God for Rosette. Well, good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Journal. Today I'm out here in Temecula Wine Country on just a gorgeous spring day. This is the second day of spring, and it's going to be warm today. It's going to be about 85 degrees. But I'm going to be heading up to the top of Oak Mountain, which is on the eastern side of Temecula. But we've got just gorgeous views already, looking toward the west and toward the ocean. And there are just some magnificent homes up here. People have grapes growing. In fact, there's a vineyard parked right on the other side of this fence right here. So we're going to be heading up this way. It's going to be a bunch of convoluted trails that kind of work their way up to the top of the mountain. And going to have to kind of keep track of my GPS route because it gets kind of confusing up there. So it was hard enough just to find the trailhead. This is a dirt road that I'm on now, but it's totally washed out another 50 feet up here. And I'll show it to you here in a second. But anyway, I can't go any farther than the Jeep. And there was also a sign back there that said no off-road vehicles past this point. So it's a good spot to park the Jeep and a good spot to start my hike today. Now I know this is going to be hard to see with the glare, but when I said the road is washed out, I meant the road is washed out. That's about as washed out as you're going to get. So I don't think I'm going to be going up this road any further. But what tremendous views we have looking toward the west. Well, we started up pretty steep here right out of the get-go, right after I left the Jeep, but it's a great spot to take in a panoramic photo or a video of some of the spectacular homes and land up here in the wine country. Well, this is a really steep start up the trail. Man, what tremendous views. We have a great view off towards Saddleback, which is the high point for Orange County back there. And you can see water off to the right. That might be the outer edge of maybe a Lake Skinner, I don't know. That's my guess. But yeah, it's just stunning up here. And once I get up here a little ways, we're going to hit a little gate. That'll be the start of the actual trail that goes up the top of Oak Mountain. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy this view. And it's pretty phenomenal. Lots of birds soaring really high in the thermals. It's going to be a nice day. Well, like I said, there are some absolutely phenomenal views from here. That's looking west and south. In fact, in the cut over there, that's the I-15 going south toward the border checkpoint in Temecula. And as I work my way around to the right, now I'm looking up toward Tanaja and eventually up toward the top of Saddleback, which is Santiago Peak and Majestica Peak. And that's looking north. And in fact, way off in the distance, you probably won't be able to make it out, is Mount Baldy. And to the far right, we'll see Gorgonio and San Jacinto, but that'll be a little later as we get a little higher up. In the meantime, we're continuing up this steep slope toward Oak Mountain. Well, here's our first little patch of cactus along the trail as I'm working my way up. Well, that's an interesting sign. Never seen one like that before. No Jeep tours, huh? Well, the road I came up, a Jeep would not be able to go up because number one, it's gated and locked. Number two, it's a giant washout that a vehicle wouldn't be able to get past. But at the top of this hill here, there was another road that's come up from the right and left. So maybe there is another access point. I have to look at the map when I get home. But I got to check the map on all trails to see which direction to go, left or right. Don't really know. I think I'm going left, but I'm not sure. Yeah, well, I got to the top of this incline, and there's like a fire road that goes left and right, so I decided to go left. I'm heading pretty much due east now. And the only reason I'm going this way is this seems to be the hardest route, which is uphill, which is where I believe is going to be part of the loop. Maybe I'll come back around the other side, I don't really know. But there are some fantastic views up here. There's vapor trails from jets everywhere. A great view of San Gorgonio now, and even San Jacinto poking its head above the top. But in the meantime, got a tremendous view of Temecula. It's outstanding up here. Oh, and here's another sign. County Wildlife Preserve. Got a really nice cable fence up here. Doesn't say you can't go over the gate or over the cables, but doesn't say you can't go that way. So we're going to continue to your left. I'm going to work my way up to the right up here. Well, like I said, as we get higher up, I got a good view of San Jacinto, Tockwoods Peak over there. And around to the left, we have San Gorgonio. And even farther to the left is Mount Baldy, and I believe that's Lake Skinner. Well, here's a sign you won't see very often. In fact, I've never actually seen a sign like this. Sensitive, federally endangered Kino checker spot butterfly area. Huh. It's a little different. There's the bees flying around. Looks like the bushes are starting to become in bloom. And over here is another locked gate prohibiting vehicle travel, which I understand. But we're going to be going this way, up and over and around, as we continue up toward the top of Oak Mountain. You know, as we come into this trail, this is totally rattlesnake country. And anytime you come across something you need to step over, you need to step on top of it first and take a peek what's on the other side. Because a rattlesnake is coiled up right here, and you just step over, you're going to get nailed right in the back of the calf. And this is definitely rattlesnake country, and this is rattlesnake time of the year. It's going to be 85 today, so they're going to be out. I hope to see one today from a distance. You know, there's only about 1,300, maybe 1,500 feet of elevation gain on this hike. I swear it's all in the first 2 miles. The good part is, once I get to the top, it should be mostly downhill all the way back. Well, what do you know? I went over this little top of the ridge, came across this sign, Endangered Species Habitat. I think this is all fairly recent. Still for the Kino checker spot butterfly. Horse or foot traffic only. No motorized vehicles, but you know, it says public lands behind this sign, so that's available. You know, I might go that way on the way back. We'll see what kind of time I have. And then also there's another sign over here. It says closed area, but it doesn't say anything about hiking. Closed to motorized vehicles. Well, I'm not motorized, so I think I'm good. Well off in the distance, I believe that is the top of Oak Mountain. Looks like my trail is going to turn left here, work its way up the fire road to the top. I'm assuming that's it. I guess I'll check the map here in a little bit, but that's the highest point in the region, so it's got to be it, right? Well, as I'm working my way up to the top of Oak Mountain, I see this little clearing on top of the hill, center of the screen toward the bottom. It's a nice clearing. Looks like there's some vehicles, maybe a house. Don't really know. It's like a very scenic location or scenic spot for a home. But right above it is that little knob on the top of the hill there behind it. That's High Point Lookout with a High Point fire tower on top. And just to the right here is the Hale telescope. Might be able to make out just a little bubble, a white bubble on the top along the Palomar Ridgeline. Not too bad a view, huh? Whew, that was a steep section. Coming to the top here. Nice little gate. You know, looks like there's a walk around to the left. Can we head in that direction? Well, as I'm working my way up to the top of this rise, besides the jet vapor trail, it looks like we're going to have a phenomenal view out here. And I just checked the map a few minutes ago, and this is not Oak Mountain, but a peak to the east and north. Oak Mountain is behind me. It's a nice big ranch down there. So we're going to eventually be heading that direction, go to the top of Oak Mountain. But I'm tempted to run to the top of that just to see what that is. I think I'm going to do it. Well, I reached the top of this peak. I'm going to have to check the map to see what it is. We have a great view over toward Lake Skinner, looking to the north and west. As I swing around to the east, you'll see Gorgonio over there, and eventually San Jacinto and Tahquitz, and then Thomas Mountain is right there in front. And I'll go over here on this side. You can see Santa Rosa Peak on the left back there. Toro Peak's the pointy one on the right. As you work your way around to the right, the little double hump saddle looking thing, that's Hot Springs Mountain. And then way around to the right in the back is Cuyamaca Peak. So Hot Springs is the highest point in San Diego, and Cuyamaca is the second highest. Then off to the right over there, that high point is actually High Point Lookout. It looks taller, that's just because it's closer. And then of course you can still see the Hale telescope sticking out. So I'm gonna take a minute here, take a break, get a swig of water, and I'm gonna head back down the trail. I'm gonna mark this on the GPS. I don't think this hilltop is actually marked. So I'm gonna set a mark on my GPS and check it when I get home. Well, I don't know if you can see this. This is the trail that I was on right here. And when I got to right here, instead of going this way toward Oak Mountain, I actually went that way. And right now, I'm at Hilltop 2754, which is actually a really, really nice spot. So I worked my way back down to that little man there. That's my trail junction that I wasn't paying attention at. And I gotta work my way to the south toward Oak Mountain. In the meantime, I'm gonna enjoy this because according to the GPS, I've hiked 2.33 miles. I'm at 2745 feet right here. So I'm about 10 feet below the top point here. Well, as I'm working my way back from that 2754 peak, At this spot here is my first ribbonwood manzanita that I've noticed. So we might be just at that cusp of elevation where it would start to change. But unfortunately, this is about as high as we're going to get on this trip. But, you know, you look down there at those big ranch homes down there, and this is fire country. And you got to think that these people are pretty smart, because building a home in an area that's ripe for fire like this one is, at least this guy has some good defensible space. He's cleared all around his house. It's a fireproof house with tile roofs. There's no wood showing. There's nothing up against his house. There's no big trees. There's no nothing. So either this guy is really, really smart, or he's a retired fireman. All right, well, now we're at the top where I just shot that last video clip of the house with defensible space. I'm not too far from where I shot that one. And I wanted to show you the ridge line over there. Not the far one, that's Palomar, the closer one. And that is Oak Mountain. Well, remember that sign? That one right there? Well, Oak Mountain is behind that sign. It's not over there, which is the way I went. It's that direction. Well, I'm continuing on the dirt road up to Oak Mountain, which I believe is right up there, or maybe it's over there. I don't know. I haven't looked at the map in a while. It's a nice little meadow right there. Looks like I see a fence of some kind. Little scenic spot. At least up here we got a little bit of a breeze. It wasn't much down below. Well, I just checked the map on all trails, and the road continues to the left. It's a little rocky, works its way up to the top, and then has like a little loop section. That's the top of Oak Mountain. But boy, what a view. That's a gorgeous meadow over there. I can imagine seeing deer out there, maybe a mountain lion or bobcat, coyote or fox running through there looking for gophers or ground squirrels. Let's keep my eye out. Maybe I'll see something. Yeah, it's very scenic up here. You can hear the crickets in the brush. And it's got a tremendous view off to that direction. You can see a great shot of Vail Lake. I'll show you a better look at that here in a minute. And down over there is a canyon that we're going to talk about here in a little bit as well. But in the meantime, I got to climb another, I don't know, 50, 100 feet. And it looks like I'll be right at the top of Oak Mountain. Well, I've climbed up the hill here. I see this white post, and it looks like this is a little summit register, maybe. All right, well, here's the top of Oak Mountain. And it looks like there's a little summit register can, so I'm going to sign in here real quick. Well, this looks like this is the top of Oak Mountain, and on the benchmark it says Henderson 1939. That's when this it's called a pipe cap, and that's what this is. This is a U.S. Says Coastal and Geodetic Survey marker, and this has been here a long time. I was up here probably 20 years ago, and came to this exact same spot. But in those days, I didn't come up the trail this way. I came from a different way, and there wasn't a summit register can like there is now. So I'm going to sign in real quick, put it back, and continue on. And it looks like this was the last entry here. Goes back inside there, goes back inside the jar, nice and tight. Here we go, good as new for the next one. All right, well, we went just a little ways past the top of Oak Mountain, and it's a little windy up here, but hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay. That is Vail Lake, or what's left of Vail Lake. You can see how far it's receded. That peninsula right there used to be underwater, as the lake used to go back probably another half mile to the left where it's kind of a reddish brown color, and it might have even flowed even further back than that as part of Temecula Creek. You can see the dam. I'll zoom in right there. That's the Vail Lake Dam, and behind the dam is the canyon, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. And above that canyon is the other Oak Mountain. In fact, you can see the dirt road working its way up to the top. And at the very tip top was where I was at a few weeks ago when I did the Vail Lake Loop. And that canyon's going to spit out to the right into a meadow. And that's what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But I think this is a good spot, good a spot as any. It's nice and cool. It's got a nice breeze. I'm going to take a break here and have lunch. Since I've got this great spot to take lunch today, thought I'd show you something. You know, I take pride in my ability to get a good deal. And some days it's your lucky day. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before. This is a MSR reactor stove. These things go for about $250. And I'll show you what I paid for this. You can read that in the bottom. Brand new, still in the box. So I'm going to use it today to make my lunch. I'm just going to have some, maybe a little bit of top ramen. Maybe make some coffee, I don't know. It's a little warm to be drinking coffee, but this stove is phenomenal in the wind. And normally you wouldn't use a big canister like this, but that's what I happen to have today. And the pot sits right on top. And believe it or not, you can boil water, 16 ounces of water, in about a minute and a half, even in the wind. I'll show you that here in a second. All right, well, let's get this going here. Even in the wind, let's see how long this takes to boil. Throw that in my pack here in a minute. See if I can get this in here without it blowing away. And it's been, what, 30 seconds? And it's bubbles already on the bottom. And it's at a rolling boil. Gotta turn it off. You can see it smoking a little bit. How was that, huh? This thing is impressive. I don't know if it's worth, $240, but I tell you what, it sure as hell is worth $5.99. This is also a little big for, in fact, you can see it. It's still boiling way in the pot there. It's a little too big for one person if you're going to go backpacking, but I don't know if you were going to a place where you're going to have high winds or cold temperatures, something like that. I can see this coming in handy. Well, the only thing I'm missing today is my sit pad. I don't know why I left it at home. Would have been nice to have here. They're hot. Now, way off in the distance, you can see that white truck. It'll probably get blurry when I zoom in, but don't know who he is or how he got up here. Maybe I'll run into him later. Well, I've left Oak Mountain and now I'm working my way, I guess it would be west and south toward that prairie meadow field that we saw. In fact, directly behind me, that point, is Oak Mountain. But we're going to go up this way. This is the road that truck was on. Kind of curious as to see who this guy is. So I'm going to head up here. There was a sign that said no motorized vehicles, but obviously there's plenty of tracks here, and you never know, maybe he's a county employee or something. Checking on the conditions, you never know. Guess I'll find out here in a minute. There's only one way out. He's got to go right by me. Well, here's another view of the dam. Working my way south. Cross over the top of a peak, and then there's the truck. I saw some people downslope to the left. They're maybe they're overlooking the canyon as well. Well, now I know what the truck was for. Biological monitoring. All right, well, I reached the top bit of the peak. I ran into the two girls that were behind me. They didn't want to be on camera, and I understand that. They were doing the Aquino checker spot butterfly ecological check, I guess, to see if they could see any there with County Riverside. So anyway, we had a great view overlooking the canyon, and I did happen to tell them the story about the Indian Massacre. I want to go into that here in a second. Okay, let's go back in time. Way back in time before California wasn't a state, or even part of the United States, in a conflict during what was called the Mexican-American War. To make this story just a little bit shorter, here's basically what happened, at least around here. The local Temecula Indians, called the Lisueños, were sympathetic to the American soldiers and looked forward to California becoming a state. The Mexican soldiers were obviously against it and joined forces with the nearby mountain band of Coahuila Indians and the local ranchers and land grant owners called the Californios to fight against them. As the story goes, after the Lisueño Indians caught and executed 11 Californios from Mexican General Pio Pico's forces in what became known as the Palma Massacre, General Pico sought revenge and sent General Jose del Carmen Lugo from San Bernardino with a force of men to capture and execute the tribal leaders responsible. When the word reached the Temecula Indians on the Temecula Creek that the Mexican troops from Los Angeles, the Californios, and the Coahuillas were headed into the valley, the Lisueño warriors went east into a canyon and hid near where the dam is built today. The Mexican Jose Ramon Carrillo and a group of men were at the Mission San Luis Rey de Francia in nearby Oceanside, and Lugo requested them to assist. Lugo sent a few men to find the Lisueño warriors, and the men reported back that the Lisueños were hiding among the steep walls of the canyon just to the west of where the dam is today. Lugo knew that if he sent his men into the canyon they would be trapped, so he decided to draw the Lisueño warriors out of hiding and into his own trap. Now, just west of the canyon was a small meadow with rolling hills on both sides. The Coahuillas took a position on one hill, and Lugo set his men on the other. Carrillo and his men went into the canyon, where they feigned fatigue, leading their horses and staggering. Now, young Indian warriors from the Lisueños thought they had an opportunity to take the Californios. The chief tried to calm them down, but the young warriors attacked the Californios. Carrillo and his men suddenly fled from the canyon into the open meadow, pulling the warriors in pursuit. Once the war party was in the meadow, the Coahuila Indians and Lugo's men attacked the Lisueños, and Carrillo's men turned and attacked as well. Many warriors were killed, others surrendered. A few warriors escaped and headed north toward Awanga. Lugo turned over the captives to the Coahuila Indians, their traditional enemy. Lugo and a few men pursued the escaped Indians. When Lugo returned, Chief Antonio of the Coahuila Indians had already killed all of the prisoners. Now, after the massacre, heavy rains followed that hampered recovery efforts, so the precise death toll still remains a mystery. The local Temecula Indians were afraid to go back out to the canyon because the bodies were left out in the open to rot for about 3 weeks before the dead Lisueño warriors were finally gathered up and buried in a common grave near the Temecula village alongside Temecula Creek. Wow, who knew? Want to know something kind of creepy? The sacred Indian burial ground where they were all buried is sitting right in the middle of the parking lot next to a Walmart. And if you stick around to the end of this episode, we're going to go take a look at it. In the meantime, here is an overview of the steep canyon walls where the Lisueños were hiding and a view of the meadow where the massacre occurred. Well, I'm back to the billboard here, the Aquino checker spot butterfly sign at our trail junction, and I'm going to be turning left here and heading back over this little rise right here and then working my way back down to the car. It's been a tough hike, a little harder than I thought it was going to be. It's hot up here. This one spot right here, there's a little breeze, but Most places there's not. There's some steep ups and some steep downs, and I swear I've climbed as much up as I have climbed down. So anyway, got a couple miles to go. Better get to it. Well, what a wonderful sight to see. There's the Jeep parked to the trailhead next to this vineyard with palm trees. Looking north and west. It's getting hot out here. Whew. Well, I made it back to the Jeep. The total of 8.19 miles today. Up to the top of Oak Mountain, top of 2257, and whatever the other one was. When I came back to the car, somebody left me a present. Little flower on the windshield. Tell you what, it's hot up here. It's every bit of 85. So I'm going to give me a cool drink, change out of these boots, put on some flip-flops, roll the windows down, and have a nice ride home. Well, that'll do it for this second part of my Vail Lake loop, the hike up to the other Oak Mountain, and the story behind the tragic 1847 Temecula Indian Massacre. Well, I've driven about 5 miles from the canyon where the massacre occurred, and I'm near Temecula Creek. And what I wanted to show you here, this used to be a block wall, and now it's been replaced with a wrought iron fence. And what's interesting about what's on the other side of this wrought iron fence is this is the actual burial ground of the Indians that were massacred in 1847. If you have any questions or comments about this or any other edition of the journal, drop me a note in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to click and subscribe and tap that notification bell to get the latest updates as I post them. In the next edition of the journal, Dave and I take a couple of short hikes into the Santa Ana Mountains of the Cleveland National Forest, to the summit of San Mateo Peak, and we also visit an interesting graffiti-covered waterfall tucked down beside Ortega Highway. That'll all be coming up in the next edition of the journal. Oh, and one more thing. I just completed one of the longest and toughest day hikes in recent years. A 16.5-mile day hike up to the top of Agua Tibia Mountain, where I encountered a whopping 8 snakes along the trail. 6 of them were rattlesnakes, and one of them was right in the middle of swallowing a rabbit head first. That'll all be coming up in a future edition, and you might want to stay tuned for that one because you're not going to want to miss this one, as I captured some absolutely stunning video of the rattlesnakes up close and personal. Yikes. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you down the trail. Take care. Bye-bye.